I stood at my command post on the bridge of the largest warship we had at our disposal. My tactical display showed that we had over 600 ships. Most of them were combat vessels, with a few logistics carriers. But most of all, this was the first real combat operation involving our first ever carrier-class warship. A concept we blatantly stole from the Terrans. Of course, we never even hid it from them. We just outright took the concept, and they were perfectly fine with it. And so were we. We were here to meet up with them. Humans, enigmas of the galaxy, freaks of nature with no rules when it comes to, well, almost anything. Now they were our allies in one of the riskiest and most dangerous operations we had ever attempted. Half the Empire's military strength was gathered here, and my hope was that we could accomplish our mission before the enemy noticed our borders were unprotected. One singular, deep, decisive strike against the enemy forces. Wipe out their admiralty and destroy their ships in a decisive surprise attack. Rogue generals, rogue admirals, and hopefully a few corrupted politicians responsible for the mess that had been going on for the last decade would come to a swift end, assuming my intel sources were right anyway. But one way or another, this would end before it began. I just needed the humans to work their magic, hopefully. All ships report optimal conditions, Admiral. All ships are in formation as requested. Ping reports 3 minutes out, the ship's captain said. Perfect. Now everyone, make sure you follow the protocol we spoke about. Manual control of turrets and weapons only, besides point defense. Set shields to double front and reactors to idle. I barked into the comms link. I took a moment for my orders to carry through, then looked around at the fleet composition. 200 ships from the Elarian Confederacy, the so-called Space Penguins, as the humans called them, sleek ships that had the capability to fight underwater and in the atmosphere for extended periods, but were weak in ship-to-ship combat. Protecting them were ships from my people, the Kataskani Imperium. Too large and unable to go atmospheric, but capable of facing almost anything spaceborne head-on. Scattered among them were 50 or so ships from humanity's newly minted vassals, the Saranai Confederacy. They were carrying the largest ships in the coalition fleet, with heavier firepower than we needed. Everything was in place. Ping detected, sir. Fleet is incoming. Terran signatures. I count 70 of them, my ensign said. I raised a brow. 70. That's a lot more than I expected. Maybe the humans are joining us in the battle, the captain mused. Unlikely. The Terrans have no skin in the game, and likely don't want the blood on their hands. They likely won't be joining the fight, I replied. If they aren't fighting, then what are we waiting here for? The captain asked, confused. Patience. Captain. Patience. Here they come, I barked, noting the space-time distortions building in front of the fleet. Moments later, they warped in. Terran industrial cargo freighters, mobile dry docks, heavy logistics cruisers. A lot more than I was expecting. They all appeared in perfect synchronization in front of the fleet, and before we could respond, they were already turning around with practiced precision. Each one could hold 50 ships easily with room to spare. We didn't need this many. Within seconds, I gave the order to mobilize and dock with any available slot. The fleet reluctantly obeyed orders, and each ship in the fleet latched on and locked in. I was about to make history by militarizing humanity's logistics network. My own ship carefully wandered into one of the dry docks, and I saw firsthand how their system worked. Gigantic mechanical claws reached down from the sides to grab the ship's hull with electromagnetic locks. effectively freezing the ship inside the dry dock's field of influence. Seconds after we were hauled into place and secured with the dock, I saw cables and pipes, among so many other things, extending from automated docking arms and extensions down to the ship. Whatever they could get a hold of, they did. They plugged themselves into sockets or removed access panels between armor layers to seize access to the ship's systems. The lights dimmed for a few moments. Then the ship's reactor slowed to an idle state. We came to a rest, and the lights returned. I checked the systems while I could, and noted how power output was reaching petawatt levels. Shields were down but angled properly, which was exactly what I had asked for. Exactly what I needed. I quickly logged into their system's computers and checked everything with them, handing over the navigation data and jump coordinates. Hopefully, they would be able to make good use of it. India Golf 903 checking in, confirming jump coordinates and operational security check. Over, a voice on the comm yelled. Copy, India Golf 903. This is Repcon 27, call sign breacher. Code 28, Alpha 275. How copy? I replied, all clear. Estimate 2 minutes to fleet readiness. We are having some hardware compatibility issues with the new ships. Give us a minute, the radio replied. I nodded in response. Now I see what's going on, the captain said. Oh, do you? Then explain it. I replied, you know of these ship-shipping ships and their ability to amplify jump range. You intend to use this ability, along with precise jump coordinates, to jump directly into the enemy fleet for a massive surprise attack. Then use the momentum to force the Kabaki to surrender. Don't you? He said. You have the first part right, but not the second. No, I have something better in mind. Something that will hit harder and result in fewer casualties if it works, I replied. And if it doesn't work, he asked. Then the Terrans will witness what the Kabaki are capable of, and our sacrifice will result in all-out war with the Terran Federation. The Terrans are here not as facilitators, but as witnesses. Don't tell them that, though they will interfere. This is a problem that goes deep, and I have to hit it just right to fix it properly. Everyone knows their targets. We have to hit them hard and fast, and leave no survivors. This is the heart of the current Admiralty, and contains the worst scumbags in the Empire. If the ships I ask for are destroyed, it won't matter if we survive the battle or not. We will have done our jobs, I said. Then this is effectively a suicide mission, the captain said with a grave expression. If you fight hard and hit harder, it won't need to be. We can rout them if we are fast and precise. And we all know exactly what we need to hit if my intel is still good, which it should be. This is for a far greater purpose than you can imagine, Igor. This has to go well, even if we die. The cold calculus of war, as humanity once coined it. Some die here, so many can live there. Sadly, that is what it comes down to, I replied. Jump drives charged, coordinates locked, grav lances primed. 2, 1, ignition, the radio said, before I could say anything. The fabric of reality disintegrated and focused itself into a singularity in front of us. I felt my soul rip itself away from my body and my brains go into my feet for the tiniest split of a split microsecond. Then it all stopped. We were in the system, all of us. 600 warships of the Coalition fleet, along with 70 human ships that had carried us in. I double-checked my coordinates. We were exactly where I had asked to be. I ran some short-wave scans. The ships I was targeting were there. Our time is now. All ships configure as follows. Shields full, double front. All weapons to manual, with point defenses on automatic and a 200-unit range. Set engines to full reverse thrust and brace yourselves for the ride of your lives. Targeting data is shared. Focus all your fire exclusively on the designated targets. If we do this fast, we will all make it out alive and unscathed, I barked. I got a beep on the console. Every ship had acknowledged my order. Okay, humans. Do your thing, I barked. A few seconds passed. Nothing, we stayed docked. What was going on? Did they hear me talk? No. Impossible. It had only been maybe 15 seconds, but it felt like an eternity, like they were considering an unknown variable of some kind. They knew something was off, but couldn't figure out what. Time was running out, though. I had to rush this before we were spotted. Please, I barked. I was forced backward into my chair as the ship's reactor. Engines and everything else roared to life. A deflection field surrounded us, and we were catapulted forward at incredible speed. Our engines throttled to full reverse, making the ride just that much bumpier as we charged through space toward the enemy fleet. My plan was working. How was it working? We were closing the distance at the perfect range and the perfect speed. And, within moments, we were in the midst of a massive warship fleet. We came to a fast halt as the engines roared away, and we stopped. "Open fire!" I yelled. Our fleet effectively appeared out of nowhere within the enemy fleet formation. With speed they had no way to counteract. We managed to confuse them enough that they were taken completely by surprise. All our ships opened fire at once. Within seconds of the order, all 10 ships I had specifically targeted were lit up like a celebratory explosives display. 3 of them faltered almost immediately, having no shields active. 3 massive explosions erupted in short order. 2 more followed shortly thereafter. And with one fell swoop, half of the Kabaki's military command structure, at least the ones I was after, were dead. Their custom-built flagships went down with them. "Maintain fire!" I bellowed through the radio. "These criminals must face justice. Do not stop your attacks until every last Trekket is melted to slag," the battle continued. As another ship faltered and exploded, the enemy finally began to retaliate. The casualty reports started flooding in. We started losing ships, but the enemy wasn't able to do much about our assault. My own ship aimed its main cannons at Kabaki Admiral Durak's flagship and unleashed a heavy battery straight into its engines. It must have blasted through the reactors, as the ship instantly went nova. We were unfortunately caught in the detonation, being basically in spitting distance. Our shields took too much impact, and they shut down. One of the starboard generators also appeared to short out and explode. 7 of 10 ships. Now what was left were Kulak, Polak, and Sunnak. Kulak was now taking heavy fire, and he would be gone soon. Polak was attempting to escape with a heavily damaged engine. Sunnak was not going down. His dreadnought was taking the full brunt of fire from 100 of our ships. And he wasn't even flinching. A sixth of our total fleet was firing concentrated barrages at him. I directed the captain to aim us at him and hit him as hard as we could. I was thrown out of my chair by an explosion. One of the enemy battleships had just used a broadside to hit us hard. Starboard stabilizers out of action. Decks 5 through 8 report hull breaches. Damage control teams engaged. The ensign barked. "Maintain fire. I know what's going on. Fight to the last man. Fight to the last, I say." The captain bellowed into his comms. Good. He figured it out a bit late, but he got it. I crawled back to my seat, and my heart sank from the casualty reports. "We are losing ships too fast. We can't keep this up," I said. All ships unable to fight. Engage emergency jump procedures. That's an order. The captain barked. I looked at the dreadnought. 180 of our ships, nearly half of our remaining fleet, were single-mindedly focused on it. I checked the transponders and noted 9 of my 10 intended targets were destroyed. It was enough. But I needed to be absolutely certain, and Sunak was the worst of them all. The casualty reports kept coming in. We took another jolt of damage from a secondary impact. 3 of their cruisers had sent a volley at us. Starboard side hit. Decks 28 to 61 report breaches. Major damage to engineering and cargo bay. Crew quarters report lights out, the ensign said. One more hit like that and our reactor will fail. The captain yelled. Retaliate against the lead cruiser. They will. My command was interrupted by a bolt from nowhere hitting the side of Sunak's ship. His shields failed. Seconds later, a second bolt hit, a direct strike on the main reactor. His warship instantly powered down and began to drift toward the planet's gravity well. Explosions from inside started appearing as parts of the ship's fuel caches exploded, likely from internal short circuits. The ship then faltered and slipped below the formation. I watched the bridge explode in a fireball from inside. Sunak was dead. As we reeled from that occurrence, 3 more bolts from the void appeared. Each one hit one of the 3 cruisers that were targeting us. With that threat resolved, I hauled myself off the floor and yelled into the communicator. Mission accomplished. Full retreat. I yelled desperately. All power to FTL drive, the captain barked. We took a few more hits. Luckily, nothing important was hit, and we were able to make an emergency jump toward our evacuation point. As soon as we were stable, I jumped out of my seat to check the casualty reports and help with the ship's damage control teams. Our operation was a complete success, but the damage was severe. Better than I expected, worse than I had hoped. Of the 600 ships I sent in, 112 were destroyed, lost, or scuttled. 200 were damaged beyond repair and barely functional. The rest were heavily damaged, some with leaking jump drives or fractured engines. It was a worthy sacrifice. Now it was time for Phase 2 of my plan. My Admiral. Terran warships on approach. Multiple non-Terran signatures detected as well. Looks like a Council Warden fleet is with them. A fleet of 200 battle cruiser and carrier-class warships incoming at speed, the ensign said. Let them come. Don't resist when they board us. Any ship with operable shields or weapons, stand down and obey their orders, I yelled back. All ships, Phase 2. Repeat, Phase 2. The ensign barked into his comm. The fleet obeyed. I sat down in my seat, and the captain and I shared a knowing nod. A few minutes later, I had Terran Marines and Council Praetorians on the bridge. My hands were secured behind my back, and the ship was being towed to dry dock. I simply smiled and took a deep, nervous breath as Councillor Vahan wandered in with his marshals. Admiral Vec. Would you care to explain the act you just committed in violation of Article 7 of the Non-Aggression Act? He said, his tall, imposing, silky form looking down at me. I simply shrugged and nodded toward a stack of documents nearby. He picked one up. It was the evidence file I had on Admiral Pollack, who was killed in the fight. He opened it and read a few lines of the reports within. His expression changed from annoyed diplomat to enraged soldier. He read further, handing the documentation to his Praetorians and even the Terran soldiers nearby. Their expressions changed accordingly. Councillor Vahan tried to speak, but I shushed him. What happens now is this. You arrest me on charges of sedition. They will take me to trial. You use this as an excuse to expose all of the evidence to the Galactic Council. Then the wheels of diplomacy will work overtime. The Council will keep the humans at bay while we do the work. Because we all know exactly what will happen if they get involved in this. Especially with what Admiral Duhak was up to. We will be able to rebuild the honor of the Kabaki Empire without them facing world-glassing warfare from the Terran Navy. We all know what would have happened. Now, let's go. I have a cell waiting for me, I said, maintaining my smile. They all looked at me, and a knowing expression crossed all their faces. One of the Terran Marines approached, glaring down at me from behind his black helmet. I'm guessing you were the ones responsible for the bolts from the blue that destroyed Sunak's ship? I asked. I got a not-so-subtle nod in response and maintained my smile. Hell of a false flag op. Use the galaxy's biggest logistics network to effectively teleport yourself on a suicide mission straight into a fleet operated by some of the biggest legit criminals in the galaxy. Then take the fall for it. Then, while the galaxy at large is attempting to get you burned at the stake as a distraction, you release all the documentation that would send half of the people who would vote to convict you to the gallows, simultaneously getting rid of an entire criminal empire and preventing the mass casualties of an entire species caught in the crossfire. Because you knew that we wouldn't forgive. Did I about get that right? He asked. Yep. Sound familiar. I stole the concept from your strategy playbook, after all, I said proudly, giving the Terran a wink with 2 of my 4 eyes. The Terran reached over and read Admiral Duhak's file. I could sense he was getting very agitated. You are correct. We would have glassed a dozen worlds if it meant we would kill this guy. Among other things, my sentiments exactly. Now, Counselor Vahan, if you would be so kind, I said. Holding up my restraints, Vahan took a deep breath, composing himself. Erase the deck logs from when we arrived on board. Use the damage to the ship as the excuse for data loss. Mimic it if you need to. He ordered the ensign. The ensign hastily pulled his pistol and put several laser blasts into the console controlling the security system. Whoops. Looks like my pistol discharged. Sorry. It spooked me. I must be seeing shadows, he said. Counselor Vahan straightened up and cleared his throat. Admiral Vec of the Kataskani Imperium, you are under arrest on charges of terrorism, sedition, and murder following the attack on Carius IV. I am placing you under the jurisdiction of the Terran Federation to be brought to trial by the Galactic Council, he said. He waved a hand, and with practiced prowess, his Praetorians and Terran soldiers hauled me off the ship and into his flagship's brig. The next few months were a blur of activity. I was predictably stripped of my rank and station and put before the council for judgment. As expected, the people I was watching did what I knew they would. They tried to vote for conviction to cover their own asses. Counselor Vahan then released the documents I had found to the council. Enraged by the data, the Terrans breached protocol and hastily arrested half the council's members. Disgusted by the evidence presented, their home nations denounced them and, in several cases, personally executed them in response. Within weeks, the Terran Navy was swarming Kabaki holdings, but they were kept at bay by council fleets, who forced them to sheathe their blades, using my battle as evidence that their intended target was already dead. Then, with the council's help, the Terrans switched from attack to relief mode, as they quickly realized just how poorly the Kabaki Empire was faring under its previous rulers. With a unanimous vote, the council ordered the Kabaki Empire to undergo temporary vassalage under the Terran Federation until they returned to their proper glory and 10 generations of corruption and abuse were undone. I was released to civilian life under forced retirement, and I chose to live on a Terran farmstead out on the Rim. It was then I learned that the council had started to inquire exactly how I had managed to pull off a stunt like that. Humanity's shipping ships and the moves I had pulled off became a hot topic of conversation. But that's not my business anymore. I have chickens now.